Aloha and welcome to the G'day Sally show. I'm Sally Squires, entertaining the world. And tonight I'm going to read you a story from my new book, Pockets, the Coat of Hidden Treasure. And this story is called The Orchard of All Fruit. There once was a very old man who owned an orchard. The villagers nearby thought he was a wizard in disguise because he grew so many different fruits in his orchard. There were many tales told about him. Some said he grew 1,000 different fruits in his orchard. Some said he fed his fruit trees on the bones of young boys and girls. Some said he made magic incantations to get his trees to grow so well and to bear so many different fruits. And so they stayed away from him. Not one person in that village ever visited him. And because he grew everything he needed to eat, he never ventured away from his orchard. He never travelled to that village or to any other village that anyone knew about. But none of their tales about him were true. You see, the truth about him was this. He had been born in a land far, far away from this village. And when he was just a young boy, his father had sold him to an ocean captain as a ship's boy. So for many, many years, the old man had sailed to every corner of the world on different ships. These ships had visited exotic countries as their wooden hulls had been used to transport all sorts of interesting and aromatic cargoes. The cargoes were almost always different foods, like tea from the ancient Orient, and tobacco from the spicy Caribbean, and oranges from Arabia, and coffee from Ethiopia, and spices and mangoes from India, and aromatic cloves from Indonesia, which was called Batavia when he visited it. He had once been on a ship which had loaded up with sweet vanilla from Madagascar, and there had once been a cargo of multicoloured potatoes from the jungles of Peru. He had even known of the use of the coca leaves from the high Andes, which the Incas chewed to stop them from being struck down with altitude sickness. And the next voyage had been to Ecuador for a sunshiny load of bananas. Once he was on a ship which visited the mysterious land of Cambodia, where it was filled to the brim with tangy peppercorns for the elite tables of European countries. Once he had been able to smell every night from his bunk the sweet spiciness of the nutmeg that filled the cargo's hold from its visit to Kerala in southern India. He had spent one overwhelming trip when the cargo was the strongly smelling garlic from Persia. But then halfway to their destination, the captain decided to pick up a load of tangy mint from the Casbahs of Morocco, so that had provided some welcome relief from the garlicky smells wafting up from the hold to surround him in his bunk as he slept. Their very next trip had filled the hull with the delicious smell of coconuts from Tahiti, which has the most amazing sunsets. Like God's paint palette, he thought, as their ship left port. He decided that his favourite cargo, of all the cargoes his nose had been party to, were the pineapples and sugar cane from Hawaii. He had even developed a sweet tooth as he learnt to suck the sugary juice from the sugar cane, and the captain had decided that pineapple would end every meal. And after a visit to Mexico, the ship's cook had taught him many dishes using the succulent tomatoes and crispy hot peppers from the region. The cook was full of information about tomatoes, how there were more than 3,000 varieties still grown of the 15,000 known varieties. They were actually classed as a berry, so more truthfully a fruit rather than a vegetable, though they were used as a vegetable ingredient in most recipes. And then on one of the voyages he was on out of Africa, he met the queen of all fruits, as he liked to call it, watermelon. One day he was walking through one of the busy lanes in Hong Kong when he saw a fruit that he thought was the most spectacular he had ever seen. When he asked the fruit seller what it was, he couldn't believe his answer, though he could see how it did actually resemble a dragon. It was purple and coated with greenish magenta frills, just like the legs of a dragon. The fruit seller said it was grown in Indochina, and he showed him what the plant looked like. It was a green succulent creeper. The fruit seller was reluctant, but he finally agreed to cut a piece off his large creeper and carefully replant it in a pot for our curious traveller. So none of the people in the village knew of all of the voyages made by the orchard owner, nor did they know anything of the amazing countries he had been to or the incredible sights he had seen, and none of them were curious enough to want to find out, except for one little girl who had just turned 7 years old. She was known throughout the village for her insatiable curiosity, and many of the villagers had been the brunt of her inquiring mind. "Now that I am 7 years old," she told her parents after she had blown out the candles on her birthday cake, "I must be allowed to go on walks by myself." Her parents were astounded at her request, but after an intense discussion, they decided that they would allow their independent-minded daughter to do just that. After all, they had given her the name Shabina, which they felt meant that she would be strong and independent, so they agreed that she must be allowed to develop those traits. And on her very first outing, Shabina chose to go and meet our solo orchard owner and find out about him. Though she was just 7 years old, she did not believe any of the stories she had heard in the village about him. She knew that no boys or girls had vanished from the village, so she laughed when they told her he fed his fruit trees on the bones of young girls and boys. She was, however, quite prepared to believe that he had 1,000 different types of fruit in his orchard, and if so, she wanted to taste every one of them. And if he was successful in growing them because he made magic incantations, then she wanted to find out what those magic incantations were. And as she knew that when visiting someone it was considered polite to take a small token as a gift, Shabina looked around her parents' garden. Should she take him some flowers, perhaps? And then one of the hens cackled loudly to announce to the world that she had done the clever trick of laying a fresh, warm egg. "That's it," thought Shabina, "I will take him a new laid egg." She wrapped it in straw and put it carefully in her little basket. The orchard owner thought he was hearing things when Shabina knocked at the door, because no one had ever knocked at his door before. So imagine his surprise when he opened his carved wooden front door to see a small girl with a basket telling him, "Hello, I am Shabina and I have come to learn about your fruit trees." And she handed him the basket with the egg placed carefully in the straw. "Welcome," he said. "Thank you for your gift. That is very kind of you." And he showed her into his kitchen, where he had been slicing up one of the flamboyant dragon fruit which he had just picked from his orchard. "Please sit down and join me in some of this delicious fruit." But before she would sit, Sabrina asked, "I would like to know your name. I asked the people in the village, but none of them know your name. So would you please tell me your name?" The orchard owner chuckled at this. He smiled. "My friends call me Talakwa. It is a name I am very proud to answer to. It was given to me by a Cherokee chief who I met on one of my travels. He said it means big fruit, and he decided it was the right name for me because I am so tall and because I love fruit so much." "I am pleased to meet you, Talakwa," said Shabina. "I hope we will be friends." During the following weeks, each afternoon, Shabina would visit her new friend Talakwa, and they would walk around his orchard together, where he would teach her the names of all the trees and the fruit from each tree. Shabina laughed when he said he did not know if he had 1,000 different fruits in his orchard, but "If you count all the vegetables I grow as well, perhaps it will add up to 1,000, he said. She tried hard to imagine all the plants and seeds he collected on his journeys around the world. "Was there room in your ship to carry all these trees with you? Didn't the captain get angry with them for taking up so much space?" Talakwa laughed, and Shabina started to cry. "Why are you laughing at me?" she sobbed. "Oh, I am sorry. I wasn't laughing at you. I was just trying to imagine all these trees lined up on one ship," said Talakwa. "You see, I collected the seeds and cuttings for all my trees over many years, so they only took up a small space at any one time on the deck of the ship, and I would water each one and then plant them when I reached port. So I didn't have them all together with me on one voyage, but a few each time on each voyage." You know, Hawaii is a microcosm of the world, with people here from all over the world. And Noa Hawaii is a microcosm of the traditional arts of the world, with beautiful patterns from many countries. They've been in business for more than 40 years with wonderful Hawaii-designed batik clothing. Their hand-dyed and handmade clothes have patterns that are based on traditional kapa and tapa designs from Hawaii, Polynesia, Micronesia, Indonesia, even New Zealand and Africa. So check out the wonderful items that Noa has on their website, www.noanoahawaii.com. You know, Hawaii is a microcosm of the world, with people here from all over the world. And Noa Hawaii is a microcosm of the traditional arts of the world, with beautiful patterns from many countries. They've been in business for more than 40 years with wonderful Hawaii-designed batik clothing. Their hand-dyed and handmade clothes have patterns that are based on traditional kapa and tapa designs from Hawaii, Polynesia, Micronesia, Indonesia, even New Zealand and Africa. So check out the wonderful items that Noa has on their website, www.noanoahawaii.com.